All right, good morning. Welcome to our first Wednesday session in Ethics Awareness Week. My name is Brian Birch. I'm the director of the Center for the Study of Ethics, and just want to say thanks to everyone who's involved in the preparation and planning of these events. Even though the Ethics Center is the host and organizer, we depend on all kinds of partners and friends across campus to help us bring these panel discussions and lectures and film screenings to you. So we are appreciative. I also want to publicly thank the staff of the Ethics Center and the Faculty Advisory Board for all of their good work on this. So you may be here just for this session, but I just want to let you know that we've had sessions running since Monday, and we will have sessions running all day today, all day tomorrow, and then Friday afternoon. And the theme of this week is ethics, education, and democracy. And so we have a number of different issues and questions that we're posing. And if you're interested in attending other sessions, you can either Google UVU Ethics. You can go right to our website, and the link to the schedule is there. Or you can scan the QR code sheets that are along the wall there. Or if you have any questions, you can contact any one of us with the Ethics Center. But we're just happy to have you here and delighted to share thinking and probing questions about ethics. So without further ado, I will turn the time over to Monica Campbell, who's the chair of the Department of Dance, to introduce this session. So please join me in thanking and welcoming Monica.
Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to be presenting the School of the Arts session for this year's Ethics Conference. The mission of our Department of Dance is to foster academic and artistic excellence through an intensive technical and a reflective study of dance. Of course, this includes academic research practices as well as our physical practices. And we are so excited for our students to see this side of our amazing faculty. So I'm going to just quickly introduce our amazing presenters. Hold your applause until I say all three, please. Jamie Johnson is an associate professor of dance, holds an MFA from the University of Washington. Her pedagogy is informed by her creative and scholarly research as well as her professional performance experiences. Krista St. John is an assistant professor here at UVU. After retiring from a professional performance career, she earned her MFA in dance from the University of Oklahoma. Lindsay Vader, assistant professor of dance, comes to UVU from Ohio State University, where she earned a PhD in dance studies and served as a postdoctoral scholar. She also holds an MFA in dance from SUNY Brockport. So without any further ado, applause please. And now I will turn it over to them. Thank you so much for being here.
Can I just say one thing? Just because we're live streaming and filming, if you could just have the microphone pretty close to your mouth up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing time and space with us this morning. We're so pleased to be with you. To begin our presentation today, we'd like to offer a land acknowledgement. The land that Utah Valley University occupies is the ancestral and contemporary territories of Utah's Native nations. We honor the resiliency of these tribal nations and recognize the historical context that has and continues to affect the indigenous peoples of this land. As a panel, we affirm that land acknowledgements provide opportunities to redress the current impact of systemic oppression on indigenous communities. To prevent our land acknowledgement from becoming a performative act, we'd like to offer several ways to put this recognition into direct action. By scanning this QR code, which we will return to at the end of today's presentation, you can gain access to direct links for the following. Utah's Indigenous Peoples Day College Collaboration will take place on Monday, October 10th. This hybrid event connects students and schools from across the state to uplift Indigenous peoples' voices and stories through film. UVU is among those participating campuses. To deepen your knowledge of Utah's tribal nations, consider enrolling in an American Indian Studies course at UVU or following UVU's student club, the Native Wolverine Association. Finally, you may consider engaging with advocacy organizations supporting Indigenous peoples' land and civil rights, self-determination, cultures, and political resiliency, like the Land Back movement. Again, we will return to this QR code at the end of our presentation, and we're happy to connect with anyone who is interested in additional information. So let's dive in. We're going to offer a brief presentation today, or a summary rather, of the overview of the session. Today we will share ways ethical pedagogy and dance can support identity-affirming environments within and beyond the university. As a humanistic field of study, dance is a provocative space to address complex social, cultural, political, and economic issues, historically and contemporaneously. Increasingly, dance scholars have articulated a critical need to interrogate how the field can foster ethical citizens through dance education and training. This panel offers research-based case studies that consider how ethical pedagogy can challenge dominant cultural discourses in dance and beyond. But what is ethical dance pedagogy? And what lineages of thought and practice inform such approaches to teaching and learning in dance? Ethical dance pedagogy is an approach to teaching and learning that asks individuals to reason through ethical dilemmas within and beyond the arts ecosystem. It is an approach that recognizes the innate dignity of all human beings while simultaneously interrogating histories of inequality. Ethical dance pedagogy asks us to reflect on personal and communal values in order to actively address ethical issues in the field through varied decision-making and collectivizing processes. Ethical dance pedagogy is deeply informed by educational theorists and social activists like Paulo Freire and Gloria Lanson-Billings, whose writing on critical pedagogy and culturally relevant teaching centers issues pertaining to social justice in order to awaken critical consciousness. At its heart, critical consciousness within the framework of education requires that teachers engage students in the personal and socio-political issues that impact their lives, their communities, and the world at large. Together, educators and students think critically about existing power structures, systems of oppression, and social realities in order to see themselves as agents of change and transformation. Nyama McCarthy-Brown is among those dance scholars who has extended the work of educational theorists within the performing arts field who are dealing directly with ethics. In her seminal text, Dance Pedagogies for a Diverse World, McCarthy-Brown urges readers to consider the ethical dimensions of dance curriculum within the United States that privileges Western European cultural traditions. Applying critical pedagogy to the dancing body, she compels the field to consider, quote, who gets to dance, in what spaces, with particular considerations for race, class, and gender, end quote. Dance scholars Doug Reisner and Karen Shoup join McCarthy-Brown in further considering the ethical dimensions of dance education. They compel dance educators to develop a reflective practice to interrogate their own identities and pedagogical values in ethical decision-making processes that impact students and the school communities at large. Taken together, these dance scholars and educators encourage the cultivation of ethical educational spaces that center social justice issues inside the study of dance. In doing so, they demonstrate how students are further empowered to engage respectfully with diverse peoples in and beyond the classroom as they simultaneously consider dance as a catalyst for social change. As we move through today's presentation, we'd ask that you consider the following question. How can ethical pedagogy in the arts prepare students with the 21st century skill sets they need in an increasingly diverse world? We'll return to this guiding question at the end of today's presentation as we engage in group dialogue. With that, I will pass it over to Jamie and Krista.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. That was great. We would like to preface our research with a little background for those of you who may not be as familiar with the historical gendering practices of ballet pedagogy and performance. Ballet has a long history of perpetuating gender binaries. Classical ballets usually only include women dancing on point, with the exception of men dancing on point for comedic relief, while men execute exciting jumps and turns and feats of strength by lifting women above their head on stage. Even some ballet steps are gendered, meaning there were, and in some cases still are, specific steps that only men train to perform. There are also different steps that only women train to perform. 21st century ballet, however, continues to evolve to include more expansive gender expressions and identities. Yet we continue to perform classical works entrenched in historical gendering practices, which leads us to some ethical considerations. So Jamie and I are co-artistic directors of UVU's Repertory Ballet Ensemble, which is a performing ensemble here on campus comprised of ballet majors. Annually, we produce a mixed repertoire concert that features classical and contemporary works. Last academic year, when we were deciding what classical work we wanted to do, we decided we wanted to present the historic ballet Les Sylphides. And Les Sylphides features a male dancer, and the rest of the cast is all female. But we were presented with a little bit of a challenge when we did not have a male dancer audition for the company. So we questioned if we could stage the work without a male dancer and what the impact of that choice would be. But we also wondered about the implications of not moving forward with the work simply because we didn't have a student who identified as a specific gender. These questions led us to embark on the research that we are presenting today. So Jamie and I decided to reimagine excerpts of Les Sylphides for our all-female cast. Since the ballet was originally choreographed and restaged by Mikhail Fokine in the hyper-cisgender world of the early 20th century, restaging this work within the context of 21st century higher education brings up some pedagogical considerations.
As with any restaging, there are aspects to consider, and dance scholar Linda Caruso-Haviland brings up several of these issues in her research, Repetition Island. In it, Haviland highlights there are no reconstructions of the past in the present that are ideology-free, and all reconstructions construct a picture of the past that equally reflects what was and who we, as reconstructors and recontextors, are. Given that knowledge, we had to be thoughtful about how we moved forward with this project. Today, we'll share the methods we used and the actions we took. In the end, by diving into feminist theory, surveying the students about their experience, and wrestling with the challenges of reconstruction, we posit the sustaining pedagogical value of restaging canonical works, but we advocate for a fresh perspective and sensitivity to the past and present cultural values. Beyond our embodied histories with the work, we consulted quite a few sources as background for our research, and we wanted to highlight a few of these as a framework for our discussion today. Jill Green, in her work, Somatic Knowledge, The Body as Content and Methodology in Dance Education, stated, "Our bodies and bodily experiences are shaped by history and culture. In other words, bodily experience is not neutral or value-free. It is shaped by our backgrounds, experiences, and socio-cultural habits. Therefore, the original staging of this work was influenced by its own history and culture, and so too is our reimagining. In reimagining this work on an all-female cast, we were confronting a few pervasive ideas present in classical works. The dance writings of Michael Montoya highlight the pedagogical traditions we were confronting, the first of which is the image of the female dancer. The image of the female dancer generally fits into one of three molds: vulnerable waif, hypersexualized doll, or angry villainess. And what we find is that women who do not conform to these roles are often bullied and ostracized. In addition to the training of dancers reinforce these specific images. Dancers are often separated into male and female classes, and when within the same class, often trained in different skills and styles of movement. While female training primarily focuses on flexibility and feminine expression, male training features powerful athletic jumps and turns and complicated sequences of both. Regardless of their gender or sexual identity, biological females are expected to be soft and delicate, and biological males to be strong and masculine. So we were disrupting pedagogical traditions by asking females to do male steps. We debated how our choices would be received because, as Montoya continues, he points out that choices in casting, choreography, staging, setting, and storytelling are almost exclusively heteronormative and are made to appeal to cisgender heterosexual audiences. So, by having females partner females, we were stepping outside of this heteronormative expectation for classical ballet. We used this background research to influence the development of our methods for our study. There are two main components to this IRB-approved study. The first is the movement component, and the second is the follow-up survey. Participants rehearsed Les Solfège as part of their coursework in fall 2021 and spring 2022. The dancers rehearsed excerpts of Les Solfège, along with several other works on the program, 5 days a week for 2 hours a day leading up to their February performances. After the performances, students voluntarily completed an online Qualtrics survey. The study design of this research is qualitative in nature. Data was generated by physical experiential movements, by participants, researcher observations, and post-experience surveys. After experiencing the performance and rehearsal process, participants responded to several background and demographic questions, as well as 3 experiential questions, which asked the following. From your perspective, how does an all-female identifying cast alter the meaning of Les Solfège? How does performing masculine actions such as port-de-bras, partnering, and allegro alter your experience of the work? And what value does this serve you as a ballet student in higher education? We purposely constructed questions in open-ended ways to allow for rich description from the participants to mitigate researcher subjectivity. We also distance ourselves from the data by using systematic coding techniques. The coding processes focused on in vivo and descriptive coding. Data was collected using a Qualtrics survey. The survey did not collect personally identifying information to keep responses anonymous. Students were asked verbally and via email if they would like to volunteer to complete a Qualtrics survey, and an informed consent document was sent via recruitment email and verbally explained.
In our initial reimagining of several excerpts from Les Solfège, we wrestled with how to convey the choreography in the manner of the original choreographer, Fokine, while adjusting for the bodies in the room. We recognize that we are not the first to attempt same-gender partnering in a historic ballet context, but this is the first time we've attempted it at this institution. As much as the students, we are really learning through this process. We used 4 primary methods to reimagine excerpts of Les Solfège for our all-female cast. We changed some of the male-female partnering to solos. We had a female dancer perform choreography usually performed by the male dancer. We reimagined supportive partnering to be performed side by side with 2 female dancers. And we had 2 female dancers perform partnering usually performed by a male and a female dancer. This first video example that I'm about to play comes from the opening of the ballet. It is usually performed with a male dancer supporting the female dancer. We modified it for the female dancer to perform alone. At the same time, we attempted to maintain the integrity of the original choreography. Interesting. How do I make it play on there? Okay, gotcha. All right. Take 2. next video example comes from the finale of Les Solfège. Usually this is a solo for the male dancer, and then he is joined by one of the sylphs, and he supports her in a series of lifts traveling downstage. In our altered version, at the start of the video, you will see the male solo performed by one of the sylphs, and then in lieu of the partnered lifts, two sylphs perform a modified version of the choreography side by side traveling downstage. So throughout the rehearsal process, for the most part, modifications were embraced by the students. However, the process was not without challenges. The sections in which we attempted to keep the partnering close to the original version, in which the male dancer supports the female dancer, elicited the most divergent student response. Some students appeared somewhat resistant to attempting same-gender partnering in a classical context, while others seemed really eager to experiment. In rehearsals, we worked on basic partnering techniques and experimented with different approaches. And our experimentation revealed that some students had some preconceived notions about partnering. For example, that the man is always taller, which is simply not the case. It also revealed that many dancers had limited to no experience working with a partner in a supportive role. We had two casts of principal dancers for Les Solfège, Cast A and Cast B. In these photos, Cast A is on the left and Cast B is on the right. The two casts approached the work from different perspectives. The principal dancers in Cast A were somewhat hesitant to explore the traditionally male partnering role. They appeared to wrestle with both dancers' desire to execute the traditionally female choreography. Cast B openly explored same-gender partnering in a classical context. The dancers practiced the partnering sections on their own and experimented with a supported penché with both dancers on point, illustrated by the photo on the right. Note that this is an especially challenging feat when both dancers are balancing on their toes. Typically, it's performed with a male dancer standing flat-footed. So Jamie and I recognized that just because we were excited about this experiment did not mean that all students agreed with our approach. We provided Cast A the opportunity to suggest a modification they felt confident performing. They suggested an adjustment to the choreography in which they both supported each other, rather than having one dancer embody the typically male role. See the photo on the left as an example. The divergent responses of the two casts led us to create two versions of the same section. This next video example is a split screen of what is traditionally a male-female pas de deux. Cast A is on the left and Cast B is on the right. Although both versions are modified, Cast B is performing choreography closer to the original version.
After we finished our performances, we surveyed the students about their experience. The survey results were as follows. We had 12 female identifying students respond to the Qualtrics survey. The largest contingent of dancers stated that they had 13 to 16 years of ballet training, with some experience doing partnering work. The open-ended questions garnered some interesting responses. Students' responses exhibited an understanding of the historical context of the original ballet, as well as the impact of the alternate casting had on the ballet. The students wrote in response to the question, from your perspective, how does an all-female identifying cast alter the meaning of Les Solfèdes? One student wrote, a big part of romantic ballets was the dynamic between men and women. So that exploration of creating an homage to romantic ballets, one of those core pillars of portraying heterosexual relationships, was removed with an all-female cast. The idea of the Romantic era ballets was still achieved through the stylistic way of using the ballet technique, the costumes, music, and lighting. In the end, the students recognized that a change occurred, that it impacted people's understanding of the work, but as a reimagining, they felt it honored the Romantic era.
Our reimagining of Les Solfèdes for an all-female cast also appeared to influence the students' perception of females' roles in ballet. In response to the question, how does performing or observing female-identifying dancers executing masculine actions, such as port-de-bras, partnering, and allegro, alter your experience of the work? Students wrote. One student said, it gives it a very strong female presence, as opposed to, here's a bunch of women flocking around a man. Another student wrote, I think it is empowering to see that a female can partner other females in the classical world of ballet. And another student wrote, I performed a variation as a solo that is originally done as a duet between a man and a woman. To me, it was much more special as a solo. As I was dancing, it felt strong, powerful, and beautiful. But if I were to have danced it with a man, it most likely would have felt more like I was a small woman that needed the help of a man to perform steps that I can certainly do myself. Although it seems that many dancers were pleased with the final result of the ballet, there were some growing pains in the process. One student wrote, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I did not necessarily love seeing a woman execute masculine actions, but it did turn out better than I thought it would. And another student wrote, observing the female-identifying dancers executing the traditionally masculine actions provided a few challenges. Females are typically not trained in partnering the way that men are. This meant that the dancers doing the typically male partnering part had to work extra hard to quickly learn the techniques that go along with the job.
Our third experiential question asked, what value does this restaging of Les Solfèdes have for you as a ballet student in higher education? A student wrote, this reimagining provided the ability to still perform classical works without a male dancer present. Another said, it showed me that even when a limitation presents itself, we can rise above and exceed expectations. Another went on to say, it provided me with an insight into how to approach recreating classic works. And another said, this really gives me an eye-opening experience. I have always believed in needing to stick with the traditions and follow the rules when it comes to classical ballet. You are allowed to reshape and reimagine things. And finally, another said, it gave me options for future works and opened my mind to new ideas of learning and teaching. These responses indicate that the shift to the all-female identifying cast led the dancers to see opportunities and challenge some existing perceptions regarding gender roles in Les Solfèdes.
In summation, in this study, we reimagine excerpts of Les Solfèdes with an all-female identifying cast in a two-part IRB-approved study where we modified movement and surveyed students. We combined student feedback with our research to explore how an all-female identifying cast alters the meaning of a choreographic work that traditionally includes a male identifying dancer. Diving into feminist theory, surveying the students about their experience, and wrestling with the challenges of reconstruction, we found the sustaining pedagogical value of restaging canonical works with an all-female identifying cast. working within our limitations and approaching Les Sylphides from a fresh perspective allowed us to present a historical work while simultaneously exploring some current cultural values.
These may seem like small changes. However, these changes push boundaries and challenge the perception of gender within a classical context for ourselves, our students, and our audiences. This initial sampling encourages us to continue to explore reimaginings in this manner to support students' educational journeys.
And here is a list of references and sources we consulted for this portion of our presentation. And now we'd like to turn it over to Lindsay to discuss how ethical dance pedagogy moves through different forms and genres.
Thank you, Krista and Jamie. So I wouldn't be honoring my last name, Vader, unless I began my part of today's presentation with some space-time travel. So buckle up, here we go. It's April 2022. The energetic polyrhythmic beats of the djembe drum cascade down the school hallways. You linger at the door to a second grade classroom, soaking up the radiant joy rising above the rhythms. The students claim their space between clusters of desks, bodies bouncing in time with the music until the drum break sends them upward. And off they go, embodying a traditional dance from southern Ghana. Just moments ago, the Ghanaian dance artist Ishmael Kony, warmly referred to as Mr. Ishi, shared the mythology behind this dance. As the legend goes, a hunter traveling in the woods came across mythical dwarves with magical powers. The hunter, observing the magical creatures dancing, learned their movement before returning to his village to share the dance with others. The students hang on to Mr. Ishi's every word. Captivated by the story, they are eager to embody the magic that it holds. As you stand at the door, you bear witness to the transmission of cultural heritage through moving bodies and oral histories. The workshops that Mr. Ishi offered, which explored Ghanaian storytelling traditions as they intersect with dance and music, were part of a larger campus community partnership between Ohio State University and Patriot Preparatory Academy, a K-12 charter school in Columbus, Ohio. Ishmael, now a third-year MFA candidate in dance at OSU, was among several graduate and undergraduate students who collaborated with the school to make available a range of visual and performing arts programs. In what follows, I discuss this campus community partnership in relationship to a larger initiative at Ohio State to build a race, equity, and social justice in the arts certificate program. The certificate seeks to decrease barriers to equal access in arts education in K-12 public schools, while preparing the next generation of arts leaders with the cultural competency and ethical reasoning skills needed to thrive within diverse communities. In 2021, a team of researchers within and beyond the dance department at OSU received funding to create this race, equity, and social justice in the arts certificate program. The primary research team is pictured here, which includes myself, Alex Christmas, Catherine Logan, Professor Crystal Perkins, and Dr. Nyama McCarthy-Brown. Together, this team of faculty, students, and alumni believe that the urgent need to disrupt inequalities in the performing arts requires a robust network of arts leaders who are committed to cultivating more just futures. Consequently, the forthcoming certificate program is focused on building cultural competency through coursework that teaches anti-oppression, arts-integrated approaches to social justice education. Course studies will center on interdisciplinary perspectives to understand historical and contemporary contexts that perpetuate cultural inequalities impacting artistic fields and practices. The certificate, importantly, provides learning experiences that extend beyond the traditional classroom, offering ethical strategies to building sustainable community-engaged partnerships that support public programming at the intersection of social justice education, art making, and activism. So what are some of these cultural inequalities which we seek to decrease through the certificate program within the field at large? Systemic barriers that prevent access, fair treatment, and full participation in the arts can be observed, for example, when considering who has access to arts education and what cultural traditions and art forms are valued through classroom teaching and financial stability. A study conducted by the US Department of Education examining the availability of arts education in elementary and secondary schools nationwide reported that 97% of elementary schools and 88% of secondary schools do not offer access to any dance classes. According to the study, dance has the lowest availability across the arts, including music, visual arts, and theater. The report additionally indicated that arts access is predominantly clustered around music and visual arts offerings. Art education has long evidenced its positive outcomes for students, including academic achievement, higher standardized test scores, and social emotional learning benefits such as coping skills, tolerance, focus, and engagement. Despite these reported positive outcomes, art education remains inequitable and underfunded. A 2019 longitudinal study that followed 30,000 students found from preschool through middle school found that Black students, males, those with disabilities, those in poverty, and those not yet fully proficient in English are not getting the same opportunities for exposure to the arts in public middle schools as other groups. Researchers concluded this study by urging dance educators and policymakers to amplify advocacy efforts to increase access to these underserved groups. These trends in lower access to arts amongst historically marginalized populations are intrinsically connected then to disparities in arts occupation. The National Endowment for the Arts reported between 2012 and 2016 that only 3% of actors, 1.9% of dancers and choreographers, 10.7% of musicians, and 8.2% of fine artists, arts directors, and animators identified as non-white or Hispanic. Once in the professional field, historically marginalized populations continue to face systemic barriers. Despite efforts to make cultural philanthropy more equitable, data shows that cultural organizations whose mission center non-Western European artistic traditions and serve communities of color or low-income communities face systemic barriers to long-term philanthropic investments. Helicon Collaborative cites that nearly 80% of all gifts, grants, and contributions within the arts ecosystem go to only 10% of organizations that overwhelmingly focus on Western European traditions. So understanding these national challenges, our certificate program aims to create arts leaders who are committed to advancing justice through creative acts, while simultaneously increasing arts access locally. Service learning coursework connected to the certificate program nurtures community arts partnerships in the hopes of establishing long-term strategies that create diverse pathways for students to pursue the arts in K through 12 and higher education, with the hopes of eventually enriching the field at large. In designing the certificate curriculum and related community arts partnerships, our research team grappled with legacies of service learning coursework and community-based research that's conducted by colleges and universities that have actively harmed the very communities that they hoped to serve. So our guiding question became, how can artists ethically enter, engage, and exit community-based projects? To study this question, we turned to research in community-engaged scholarship. Particularly beneficial was a 2020 research project conducted by scholars from the University of Wisconsin who asked critical questions about how higher education is training its students to engage in community-based research. The authors conducted a field literature review citing the following types of knowledges as indicators for a prepared student: cultural competency, cultural humility, and an understanding of social identity, systems of privilege and oppression, microaggressions, implicit bias, positionality, and community context. These 21st century skill sets serve as the foundation upon which our certificate program and related community partnership are built upon. These attributes bring community-engaged practitioners into our humanity as we build better worlds together. As the certificate program embarked upon curricular design, the mission of Patriot Preparatory Academy, PPA, is to encourage lifelong learners while simultaneously preparing students for college careers and engaged citizenship. The K-12 charter school serves nearly 730 students who identify as 74.1% African American or Black, 10.8% Hispanic, 6.7% multiracial, 6.3% white, and 2.1% Asian, according to the school's most recent annual report. The diverse student population is just one of the many reasons PPA is an educational community where youth thrive. Across grade levels, students benefit from learning experiences that extend beyond the classroom. The Ohio State team began working with PPA community liaisons in September of 2021 to collectively design a range of core strategies for the partnership that support a collective vision for youth empowerment and civic engagement. So instead of having pre-prepared workshops that we designed and then brought into the school, we were collectively determining what was being offered for the students. Our community engagement model consists of 5 collaborative modes that we were specifically designing, thinking about how to ethically engage communities in art-based practices. The collaborative modes are as follows: dream, define, design, implement, and evaluate. Dreaming together allowed the PPA OSU partnership team to map assets, thinking about our strengths, envisioning the future, considering a range of core strategies that mobilize and engage community values and cultures. Define mode offered a space to articulate the shared vision, to create guiding principles, to determine the basic who, what, where, how, and when, and establish program outcomes and evaluation. With design mode, we crafted the programming and organized action steps and resources needed. Then implement mode, that's our favorite. It's where we get to conjure the magic and celebrate the work. In evaluate mode, we collect participant and community feedback, assessing our strengths and areas for growth as we move forward in the partnership. So what did we do? We use this term core strategies to describe how strategic vision can materialize through a robust menu of activities. It speaks to the multiple inroads offered so that students can really see themselves inside of the range of engagement opportunities provided. So during the 2021-2022 school year, the project embarked first upon a student-led mural. Before COVID-19 shutdowns, a cohort of high school students led by Dekanti Zukra designed and submitted for approval a school mural. As seniors, these young artists brought their vision to life 2 years later after the mural was paused due to the pandemic. Students collaborated with Ohio State visual artist and PhD student Aurelia Javier on mural implementation. Then we had our citizen artist workshops. As part of the certificate program, I developed and co-taught with Professor Crystal Perkins the course Citizen Artists, Cultivating Community Engaged Arts Partnerships. We offered this course in the spring of 2022. In this course, students investigate fundamental questions about community-engaged art making as they work with and for local communities. The central aim of this course is really to further skills needed to facilitate creative experiences with our community partners that center their perspectives, their histories, their skills, their knowledges, and their cultural practices. So for the first 7 weeks of the semester, undergraduate and graduate students enrolled in this course really grounded themselves in the theories and the best practices of community-engaged art making. Then during the second half of the semester, we placed those knowledges and skills into motion through a series of visual and performing arts workshops that were focused around group storytelling with the 6th graders at PPA. Workshops engaged community building through theater games and movement-based activities, poetic explorations of the self and community, and collage activities that were rooted in unpacking identity, just to name a few approaches. We also had a few auxiliary activities. Ohio State BFA dance majors performed for the students in the middle school and the high schoolers during assembly at PPA. Then the junior and senior classes came to PPA undertaking a field trip. The juniors and seniors at PPA came to OSU undertaking a field trip that really experienced the arts on campus. And then finally, the partnership hosted a series of one-off elementary school workshops, again focusing on Ghanaian storytelling traditions led by Mr. Ishii, which I opened with. So in our first year, the PPA OSU partnership reached 449 students, 46 teachers and administrators, and 31 OSU affiliates through these core strategies. The partnership will offer an equally vibrant range of artistic experiences this year at PPA as it simultaneously expands to a second partner site. The Race, Equity, and Social Justice in the Arts Certificate Program and its related creative community partnerships connected to it really seek to create change at a hyper-local level, with the understanding that the hyper-local is intimately connected to the local, the regional, the national, and the global. We hope that this program is able to nurture citizen artists who can address historical and contemporary issues involving justice, privilege, and power through their art making and community commitments, both guided by their ethical reasoning. Artists invested in responsible ethical citizenship understand essential matters of their communities, and they strive to foster sustainable relationships with community members to advance those issues. These are our dreams, these are our hopes, these are our actions. With that, I will return us to references, if you want to pick our brains later, for things to read on the sidelines, and our guiding question for today. So how can ethical dance pedagogy or ethical pedagogy in general in the arts prepare students for the 21st century skill sets that they need in an increasingly diverse world? What curiosities, connections, or questions do you have for those sharing space today? And we have exactly 2 minutes, so we can entertain one comment or one question and then linger afterwards to continue to share time and space.
I have a microphone if anyone has a question.
This is the beautiful moment where everyone gets a little sweaty under the armpits to see who's the brave one to step forward first. Yes, we have a question.
Hi. I just have a comment, and I think it's really wonderful to be able to teach dance, especially in elementary school. I think a lot of school is learning how to, I guess, not really listen to your body. You're not allowed to go to the bathroom when you want. You have a specific time to eat. And I think that through dance, kids are allowed to connect with their body and be able to be more in tune with themselves. And I think that's really important. And I think the arts help a lot in expression, and it helps kids focus more on school because they have a release outside of it. So I think you did a really wonderful thing with this, so yeah.
Thank you so much for that comment. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I just noticed that in the research that you did with like putting on the play with a full cast of women who identified as women, did you find a lot of need for men to figure out how to do on point and stuff as much as the women had to figure out supporting roles?
I don't know, is this microphone on? Fine dancers in our company, but I will say that this academic year we do have some male dancers training on point to dance on their toes, and that's definitely where the field is going. That it's more and more common for women to partner women and for men to partner men, and also embracing wide varieties of different gender identities and expressions. And so there's definitely a move in the ballet field to expand. Great question. Yeah. All right.
We'll hang
Thanks.
out if you have other questions that you want to ask independently.
Thanks, everyone.